Welcome everyone to the Loan Officer Training Series with the Mortgage Calculator. Give us just a few minutes here to get started. We'll go live on all the different platforms. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I see people already commenting there. Appreciate it. We put the chat up on the screen there, so if you want to drop a comment, feel free to do so while we wait to go live on all the different platforms. Tonight we are doing part 2, essentially, of what we did yesterday. So for those of you that joined us yesterday, we'll be continuing into more of a deep dive on that same topic. Thank you everybody for dropping comments there. I see everybody tuning in. Thank you for the comments, Nicole, Oscar, the other Nicole, Pearl, Mark, Matthew, Adam, Christina, Floyd. Everybody just dropping comments there. Thank you. All right, it looks like we are live on all the different platforms, so we can go ahead and get started here. We'll take the chat off the screen so we can get into it. So welcome everyone. My name is Kyle Hershey. I'm the COO of the Mortgage Calculator, joined here by our president, Nick Hershey, and our sales manager, Jose Gonzalez. We are a correspondent lender that specializes in non-QM loans, and every Tuesday and Wednesday we do this show here to do the loan officer trainings on different topics. Now, last night we touched on one of our specialties here at the Mortgage Calculator, which is 2 to 8 mixed unit, properties. Now, tonight we're going to continue with part 2 of that. So I will let Jose Gonzalez, our sales manager with 27 years of experience as a loan officer and a realtor, take it over here and continue part 2 of the 2 to 8 unit mixed use property training.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So glad to have you here all tonight. So what I want to share with you all tonight is go over some pricing for the different scenarios, and then talk about how you can structure this when you're speaking with your borrowers, because the investors usually want the maximum LTV and the lowest rate. That's not always possible, so it's good to illustrate what is possible and reaffirm that, so that then you can confidently convey that to your borrower so they can see the light and you can end up going to a happy closing. Now, to touch base a little bit on, there may be some of you that were not on last night's training, so I'll just give you a little quick refresher. This is for the mixed use 2 to 8 unit properties, and here we're using DSCR for loan type, right? This is not going to be like a regular full doc or anything like that. We're talking about 30-year term loans, fully amortizing. This is not an ARM. This is not a 5 or a 10-year balloon or anything like that. This is a 30-year fixed rate loan. Now, all of these loans for the 2 to 8, as well as a 5 to 8 unit for the 2 to 8 mixed use, they all require a 5-year prepayment penalty. There is not any other option available if you want to originate this loan, and if the borrower wants to get this for this type of product. For all of these residential hybrid type DSCR for the 2 to 8 unit mixed use and the 5 to 8 unit, they all require a 5-year prepay. So make sure that you establish that point early on, so that there's no miscommunication with your borrower, who may say, hey, I didn't know, I don't want that. Well, if they want these great rates and if they want this amazing product, there is no other option. That's what they have to agree to, right? So on this type of product, please remember that this is a mixed use residential plus commercial, where at least 50% of the building area of the structure has to be residential. Anything less than that, you're not going to be able to do it. So at least 50% has to be residential. And there's certain property types for the commercial component that are not acceptable, right? They don't really want manufacturing. They don't want worship. They don't want a daycare, nursing homes. They're really looking for more standard commercial. They would love it to be a professional office. They would love retail. Now, we had questions yesterday regarding if a bar or restaurant was possible. That's something that we would have to look into because it didn't exclude that type of business in the guidelines. So, I mean, if we're looking at what they said they would not do, and it did not say that they would not do restaurant or bars, so possibly they would do it. But before you would confirm that to any of your prospects, you would definitely want to confirm that with our investors to make sure with uh, with the guidelines or with who we sell the loans to confirm that that is possible. So let me share our first example here is the top tier, which is a 760 plus credit. Oh, now one other thing I wanted to note, because every now and then we do get this question, and then somebody starts beating their head, trying to figure out if they can do it. The maximum LTV is 75% for this best case scenario product with the 30-year fully amortizing loan and with these great rates. Even with the one that's the higher rate, the 30-year fully amortizing product, maximum LTV is 75% LTV. So here in this one here, I mean, we would be looking at 9.375 is giving you a little bit of a lender credit, and 8.25% is your lowest rate option. So keep in mind also, this does require a 1.1 minimum DSCR, right? So if your DSCR is below 1.1, we do have an option for you, which I'll share at the end of this presentation, which is our second choice option. But for our best case scenario, where we do get that 90% of the vacant property cash flow versus 75%, and where they do allow up to a 65% overall vacancy factor, they are 75% is the maximum LTV there. And now, if your borrower has a 740 to a 759 credit score, again, this is still a pretty good tier, but you'll note, let me remind you here, we had 9.25 was still giving a little bit of a lender credit here. In this case here, it's 9.375 giving a little bit of a lender credit. Still required the 1.1 plus DSCR, and it's still also 75% max LTV. So this is still a great scenario for your deals, right? Now, here, 720 to 739 credit score, you can still obtain 75% LTV. But you'll notice now that the lender credit option now increases to 9.625. So you're looking at about a 0.375 increase in the rate from our best case scenario, 720 to 739, from a best case scenario of 760 plus credit score. So now when you get to a 700 to 719, for our this best case scenario option that we have, the LTV does drop to 70%. But look at your rates again now; they do get a little bit better. You're at 9.5 still gives you a little bit of a lender credit, and 8.375 is the lowest buy down. And if I flip back to the other slide a minute, you'll see this one was 8.5 as the lowest buy down. And to get to that 8.375, you would have to be at a 740 to a 759 credit. So the LTV does drop by 5%, but again, you have very good rates here. Now, 680 to a 699 credit score, again, we do encounter an LTV drop. We're now looking at 65% maximum LTV. But again, look at these great rates and the cost. You will know once I show you the second choice option, you're going to see why these are amazing rates. And this is where we start talking about the structure on the deal, right? Because this is the point that you have to convey to your borrowers when being the consultant. Now, 660 to 679 still available to get these good rates and costs. Here you're looking at 10.125 is costing you $488 in buy down, and you can buy it down all the way to 9.125. Still amazing when you consider 660 to 679 credit score. That's a very low score. Now, the minimum credit score for this program, for whichever option, this option or our second favorite option, the minimum credit score is 660. Does not drop below 660. And here you're looking at 65% LTV max. So now here's where I wanted to show you in a scenario where you are at 700 to 719 credit score. Is 700 is going to be the lowest credit score that they can have and still get 75% LTV on a 30-year fully amortizing product. Now, keep in mind, look at the cost here, right? This is, 15,654. So you're looking at full buy down here of almost 3 points, 2.75 points to get 10.249. And if you did want to buy it down anymore, I mean, this wasn't the highest rate available on the rate sheet either. I sort of picked the one that was right in the middle. If you did want to buy it down a little bit more, if it would be possible, here we were doing $750,000 purchase price. I think the loan amount here is like $564. I guess I'll do some quick math here a minute. 750 times 0.75. Yeah, 562,500. So you would be looking at, that's roughly 2.75 points there to get 10.249. So now if we go to our other 700 option, right, this gives us 70% loan to value. But if we look at our lowest cost option here of $131, right, so 131, and in the other case, excuse me, I lost my presentation here a minute. Sorry about that. Excuse me a second. So if we had 15,654, you're looking at $15,523 difference in the cost between one and the other, right? And if we get that, that's where, so we already know that's 2.75%. So if the borrower is only saving 2.25% here going with this option, but they're paying substantially more monthly, right? Because if you're looking at 50/40 in that option, 5,040 for the payment, and in this option here, you're looking at 4414. So that's $626 there every month. So let me write this down a second here because I'm going to forget. So 626, and we're looking at 2.25% of, all right, so times 0.0225. 562,500 times 0.0225. So that's $12,656 in our example here is what the customer is saving in down payment, right? And if we divide that by 626 in 20 months, which is not very long. In 20 months, that difference is already made up. So, and it's not a substantial amount of money when you're looking at a $750,000 purchase and you're looking at a $562,500 loan. You know, I mean, if you were going to tell me the difference, they're saving for whatever reason, it's $1,000 or $1,500, or or less. I mean, where you're gonna where it may take 30 or 40 months to make up that difference. Maybe it's a $300 or $200 difference, but it's not. The difference is $626. So you do recapture that savings in 20 months. And then after that, it's a cost, an additional cost every month, like an opportunity cost, where if they would have got the lower rate, they'd have the $4,414 payment every month. And if they decide to spend a little bit on buy down, then it could be even better. But if we're going to do apples to apples here, we'll go with the lowest cost option here and compare the payment. And I really wouldn't see the benefit unless the borrower absolutely did not have the extra $12,000 to put down so that they can make it to the 70% option at 9.5% and experience the much lower payment, and other factors that may come into play. Like, for example, what if you have vacant units and your DSCR is being affected because the other option only gives you 75% of the income on the vacant unit, whereas this option gives you 90% of the income on the vacant unit. And let me explain also some other factors to consider when you're looking at the structure between one option and the other. This option, even though the rates are better, allows first-time investor and first-time home buyer, whereas the other option does not. So when you're really comparing the scenario, you may have a first-time investor who's also a first-time home buyer that thinks that they want to go with the other option because to the other, you're always going to be looking at that 2.25% difference. You're always going to be looking at the higher payment on the other option because it's a much higher rate. And you're going to be looking also at what if your borrower is a first-time home buyer and a first-time investor. The other option won't allow that. This one does. So, I mean, when you're sizing up the deal, again, that's why you're going to have to look a little bit beyond the loan to value. You're going to have to look a little bit beyond the payment, and you're going to have to make sure that you ask them as many of these questions. Even when you are quoting the deal, you want to know these things. That's part of the things that you should ask when you're dealing with a DSCR borrower, because that investor experience and primary home ownership is a requirement in one form or another. It could be one or the other or both for many of these DSCR options. So, regardless of if you're going to do this, you want to make sure you ask them all those questions about home ownership, about if they live rent free or not, if their current primary is paid off. Make sure that they're up to date on their taxes, because that's what they're going to ask you then if you use this option, to show that they have some type of housing expense. So you really got to probe, get as much information as you can, which is also going to help you build rapport with your borrower. You don't want to just go in and out and then send them a quote and think that miraculously they're going to agree to it. No, you got to build up some rapport. You have to show that you care for their well-being, and then they will, the barriers will come down. They'll give you all the information that you need to properly size up the deal. And then at that point, you're going to have your consultant head on, and you're going to give them some recommendations on what they should do, what option they should get, because it's not always in the surface level. It's not just, okay, what's your credit score? What's your down payment? What's your purchase price? Okay, here's your quote. No, got to go a little bit deeper than that to make sure that you send the right quote for the right option.
Was that all you wanted to go over?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going over, the pricing like that, and just making sure that they got it set up properly, and looking to see if they have any questions on this product type.
All right. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop them there. We can answer some questions, but amazing programs, obviously. If you weren't able to tune in yesterday, definitely check out the recap of that. It's on our YouTube page for part 1 of this.
Yeah, because where I see that MLOs get in trouble sometimes with these options is that they don't consider asking, the type of pertinent questions that they should, which is the ones that I was touching on now, which is home ownership, first-time home buyer, investor experience. And then they may get into the conversation. They may forget to emphasize that, and may end up sending some quotes that wouldn't make sense, or maybe missing out on opportunities. Because then they could properly explain to the borrower why this option would be better, even though possibly, depending on the credit score, the LTV may be a little bit lower, but the overall loan will be much better for the borrower. Especially when you consider that the difference is usually between one and the other. After you factor in the increased cost of the other option, the benefit is usually only 2.25% of the loan amount in savings to the borrower, and that's not, that's not really going to help them too much in the overall scheme of things. If they're planning on holding this property 5, 6, 7 years and not refinancing out of that loan in 5, 6, 7 years, they would be leaving a lot of money on the table at the higher rate needlessly.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions, so I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Remember, we do this every Tuesday and Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time for the Loan Officer Training Series. And then, of course, our daily mortgage rates live at 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday as well. I do see a question coming in here. Is there a questionnaire available to use to get the information? I guess you're talking about like a questionnaire for the client.
Not really. I mean, we do have, we have had other trainings on the sales call, but, and we do have in our lender loan guide, we have guidance on one of the slides there. We touch base on some of the questions that you should ask, some of the basic stuff that you should ask, and we do touch base on DSCR when on that slide. So we do have some guidance there. So if you go into the Knowledge Center and you check out the lender loan guide, you're going to get the guidance there for the basic questions that you can be asking. But in the end, it's going to boil down to a little bit more with you're getting familiar with the guidelines for that program. And then you're going to have a better idea of the questions that you should ask. Like I was touching base on it, right? In yesterday's training, and reemphasizing it today, where we were talking about the fact that you can be a first-time home buyer and a first-time investor, but you need to have a housing expense that's verifiable if you're renting, or if you're free and clear, you would need to show that you paid the taxes on the property. So it's things like that that's going to help you know what type of questions to ask when you're speaking with your investor.
Another question here. How are these working in California, where prices are extremely high and cap rates around 4%?
Well, that's a scenario. California is not the only place that is experiencing low cap rates. At that point, it's going to be a deal-to-deal scenario. Remember, this is not about cap rate. This is just, does the gross rental income cover the housing expense. Cap rate has to do with, the housing expense, but other expenses on the property as well, right? Here, we're just looking at principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and if applicable, association fee as your housing expense. You get the gross rental income divided by that. And if you're at least a 1.1 or greater for the best case option, you're good. And if not, you would go to the secondary option, which requires a 1.0 or greater. In many cases, it works, but that's case by case. Just gotta ask the realtor for comps, also rental comps.
Put it back on the listing agent, right?
Yeah.
If the property's not financeable, it's probably at the wrong price.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for the questions. We appreciate it. We will hopefully see you all then next Tuesday and Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the next episodes of Loan Officer Training Series with the Mortgage Calculator. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.